Hey everyone, today I'm in Kingfisher, Oklahoma at the Kingfisher Cemetery, and there are definitely a lot of burials in this cemetery, and it's very interesting, very beautiful, a lot of historic ones. But I'm going to show you a family that's of importance to Oklahoma history and some outlaw history as well. Let me show you. On the far east side of the cemetery, towards this house right over here, you'll see this group of graves right here. And this is the Dalton family. And some of these markers were placed here, of course, later on. But here we have a Nanny Dalton Clute, C-L-U-T-E, born March 11th, 1876, and died December 27th, 1901. And then right over here, we have Simon Noel Dalton, private in the United States Army, July 6, 1878, and died September 13th, 1928. Now after that, we have newer monuments here that have been placed here much later. This is Eva Mae Dalton Whipple, born January 25th, 1867 in Missouri, and died January 27th, 1939 in Kingfisher, Oklahoma. Her husband in marriage, October 25th, 1887 at Meade, Kansas, John N. Whipple, born April 1851 in Connecticut and died in 1932. At the bottom it says, "Into thy hands I commend my spirit. May she rest in peace." But like I said, there are several other Daltons here. Besides these, pretty interesting to see this growth. I always love this growth on the side of markers and stuff. Now this is Henry Coleman Cole Dalton, November 26, 1853 in Missouri, and died February 28, 1920 in New Mexico. Was the son of James and Adeline Dalton. Remember, friends, as you pass by, as you are now, so once was I. As I am now, you will soon be. Prepare for Christ and follow me. Is what it says down at the bottom. And this right here is Adeline Lee Younger Dalton. September 15th, 1835 in Missouri, January 24th, 1925. She was married March 12th, 1851 to James Lewis Dalton. And that was, he was February 16th, 1826 to July 16th, 1890. They were both the parents of Charles, Cole, Casseth, Elizabeth, Littleton, Frank, Grat, Bill, Eva, Bob, Emmett, Leona, Nancy, Simon, Hannah, twins. They arose and met the dawn of everlasting life, is what it says there. So these are newer markers for sure. And then this is Leona Randolph Dalton, July 17th, 1875 to April 18th, 1964, daughter of James Lewis and Adeline Lee Dalton Jr. And you can see an American Legion medallion down at the bottom behind the flowers. Now this is really who we came here to see. Emmett Dalton, May 3rd, 1871 to July 13th, 1937. He was married September 1st, 1908 to Julia A. Johnson Gilstrap Lewis. She was March 5th, 1870 to May 20th, 1943. And it says, here lay sleeping, but not to remain. So this is Emmett Dalton, and let me tell you a little story about Emmett. Dalton was born on May 3rd, 1871 in Missouri to Lewis and Adeline Younger Dalton. Yes, you heard me right. The last name was Younger. We'll talk more about her in just a second. Emmett's older brothers Bob and Grat briefly worked as U.S. Deputy Marshals in Indian Territory, although it wasn't exactly official. They were sharing a position that was held by their older brother, Frank Dalton, after he was killed in the line of duty. They hired Emmett to serve as a guard at the jail in Fort Smith, which is in present-day Arkansas. The elder two started working for the Osage Nation to help them set up a police force, but they soon fled after being pursued for stealing horses and, in some reports, selling whiskey to the Osage. From there, the Dalton gang was born, and that's where the trouble started. In October of 1892, a deadly gunfight took place in Coffeyville, Kansas. It ended with 4 dead outlaws of the Dalton gang, as well as 4 citizens of the town who tried to stop them from robbing 2 banks at the same time. Emmett Dalton was the only member of the Dalton gang who survived despite receiving 23 gunshot wounds. In fact, the townsfolk actually thought that he would die and laid him next to his 2 dead brothers, Bob and Grat, as well as the other 2 dead members of the gang. But somehow he survived, and he was subsequently sent to prison where he served for 14 years. In 1907, Emmett was conditionally paroled after being a model prisoner. At that time, he underwent surgery in Topeka, Kansas for a wound to his right arm that he suffered in the Coffeyville shootout. In November of 1907, the governor of Kansas pardoned Emmett unconditionally. He then stayed out of trouble and got married in 1908 to his boyhood sweetheart, Julia Ann. They lived in Tulsa for a short time period where he served as a special police officer. Later on, they both moved to California, where they were both working as building contractors until Emmett's death on July 13, 1939. While in California, Emmett capitalized on his notoriety by writing 2 books and becoming an actor as well as a technical advisor for Old West films. His first book, Beyond the Law, was adapted into film in 1918, and he portrayed himself in the movie. His second book was published in 1931, and it was called When the Daltons Rode. That book was co-written by Jack Jungemeyer Sr., who was a Los Angeles journalist. It was adapted into a movie in 1940 by the same name, which was after his death. One of the interesting and little-known facts about Emmett is that a few years before his stroke and death in 1939, he actually visited the town of Coffeyville, Kansas. There he toured the town and visited places where the attempted robbery took place. He tried to make amends with the town and even broke bread with a Mr. Gump who sounded the alarm on the day the robbery took place. Adeline Younger Dalton was born on September 15, 1835 to Charles Lee Younger, nicknamed Cole, and his common-law wife, Parmelia Wilson. Adeline married James Lewis Dalton, and she was known as the mother of the Dalton gang boys. But she was also the aunt of other outlaws, which were Cole, Bob, and Jim Younger. In addition to these outlaws, some of her other relatives were outlaws Frank and Jesse James. Now, Frank just might be the name that she used when she named her oldest son Frank, who later became a U.S. Deputy Marshal. Adeline lived here in Kingfisher, Oklahoma until her death on January 24, 1925. She lived here in a cabin known as the Dalton Cabin, and this can be seen on the grounds of the Chisholm Trail Museum here in Kingfisher. In addition to the Dalton Cabin, there are also other historic buildings on site that you can tour. The inside of the museum has a lot of history of the area. Some of it is Native American, and others of it is early pioneer or agricultural items. If you do plan to visit, please plan on a couple hours. There's a lot to see here, especially if you're into these types of things. So this cabin is the real reason why we are here. This is the Dalton Cabin. Now, it is not a big cabin by any means, but the Dalton Cabin, this sign says, formerly stood in the Blackjack southeast of Dover and was the home of Adeline Dalton the last 16 years of her life. The Daltons came to Oklahoma in 1890 and settled on a school quarter northeast of Kingfisher. Adeline was the mother of 13 children, all of whom but 4 were law-abiding citizens. She died in 1925 and was buried in the Kingfisher Cemetery. So you can see this roof. It is a very simplistic, rustic cabin. Narrow doorway, so you can't be very big. In fact, I can't even stand up all the way. I'm 6 foot tall, but you can't stand up all the way if you're 6 foot tall and enter that doorway. Nothing complicated about this at all. It's literally just actual logs here. I don't know what that is. Oh, maybe just a ring for a light, but that's an old rocker and a table. They have kind of restored part of it here, I see on the sides. But these are little doorways right here. The top of that doorway right here is probably, I don't know, 5'10"-ish. This is probably 5'8"-ish or something. I don't know. It's not very tall though. They've constructed what looks to be a bookcase. And there's a few new areas of logs right in through here. But it's pretty interesting to think about. Maybe these old floors are the same old floors. I don't know. When you look at this, it's very simple with this old stove right there. Just a 2-burner wood stove. Very tiny. There's not a lot of room for anything in this. So simplistic living for sure. With all of these doors like this, I don't know how much of it is original even in here, especially since they've replaced some of the bottom right there. This floor might not be original either, I'm not sure, but still pretty interesting to see this old Dalton cabin here. So the interesting thing about this cabin is that wood stove had no outlet for it. I'm sure that it would have at one point in time, but maybe they're just not done with the restoration of it. I'm not sure. But it only had one window in there, and of course it wasn't open. And it's probably 80-something degrees today, but it was really, really hot inside there. As you can see, that tarp is over that window, so there's not much breeze going through there. But they have this little makeshift cemetery that's in here that I didn't know that was here. And let's see what it says on these. Mary Alice Mott died February 4th, 1893, aged 22 years. I'm not sure who that is. You can't really read that writing there. Not sure if these are important people from the town or what.
Jacob Nels, June 29th, 1841 to April 10th, 1898.
Yeah, Jacob Nielsen. And then there's a Johanna Jane Nelson right beside it, 1907. And who's that say?
I can't tell.
Orleana Tusing died
June 22nd, 1900.
Yeah, 59 years old looks like. Neat little old lantern right there. There's one other marker back here. I don't know if these are markers that broke in the cemetery and they restored them or what. But this is Joseph Henry Sleer, S-L-I-E-R, born August 22nd, 1863, died June 17th, 1902, 38 years old. They're definitely too nice to just being made for the museum, so I think they probably came from the cemetery. So this is one of those great things about the museums in Oklahoma is they have this free babysitting service here. You just put your kid in there and you can go anywhere you want for the next week or so. Just leave them in there. They'll give them free bread and water so you don't have to worry about it. They got a roof over their head. Nice comfortable bed right over here on the floor. Love it. So I hope you enjoyed this little story on the Dalton family and learned a little bit of something about history that you might not have known otherwise. As always, thanks for watching, and we'll see you guys next time.